The funeral reception was being held at the country club, Grandpa's favorite place, where he'd spent every Thursday afternoon for the past 30 years. It felt surreal to be celebrating his life in the same room where I'd shared countless lunches with him, listening to his stories about building his business from nothing. 3 weeks. That's how long it had been since I'd held his hand in the hospital, since he'd squeezed my fingers weakly and said, "You've always understood, Sarah. You're the only one who really listened." I hadn't known what he meant then. Standing by the buffet table with a plate of food I couldn't eat, I was about to find out. "Everyone, if I could have your attention, please." My sister Vanessa's voice cut through the murmur of conversation like a knife. She stood near the head table, her black designer dress probably costing more than my monthly rent, her blonde hair styled in perfect waves. She'd arrived 15 minutes before the service started. I'd been there since dawn, helping arrange the photo displays. The room quieted. Vanessa smiled, the same dazzling smile she'd perfected in high school, the one that had always gotten her everything she wanted. "I know today is difficult for all of us," she began, dabbing at her dry eyes with a tissue. "Grandpa was such an incredible man. A brilliant businessman, a loving grandfather." He paused, letting the moment breathe. "And he was very clear about his final wishes." My stomach dropped. "Oh, she wouldn't. Not here. Not now." "Grandpa left his investment portfolio to me," Vanessa announced, her voice ringing with triumph barely disguised as solemnity. "He trusted me to carry on his legacy. To manage what he built." She looked directly at me, her eyes glittering. Sarah wasn't mentioned in that part of the will. The silence lasted only a second before the congratulations poured in. "Oh, Vanessa, how wonderful." Aunt Patricia rushed forward, pulling her into an embrace. "Your grandfather always said you had his head for business." "That's quite an inheritance, sweetheart," Uncle Tom added, clapping her on the shoulder. "He must have had tremendous faith in you." My mother appeared at Vanessa's side, beaming with pride. "We always knew Grandpa saw something special in you, darling. This is such an honor." I stood frozen, my plate trembling in my hands. Saw something special in her? Vanessa had visited Grandpa maybe 6 times in the last 5 years, and 4 of those were at Christmas. Meanwhile, I'd been meeting him every Thursday for lunch, helping him review his quarterly reports, explaining the technology investments he didn't quite understand, listening to his concerns about market volatility. "Sarah, honey, are you all right?" My cousin Jennifer touched my arm, her voice syrupy with pity. "I know this must be disappointing, but I'm sure Grandpa left you something. Maybe some personal items." I looked at Vanessa, who was watching me over the crowd of well-wishers, waiting. She wanted this. She needed to see me crumble, to watch me realize that I'd been nothing but the overlooked sister. That I smiled. A small, quiet smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Congratulations, Vanessa," I said softly, setting down my untouched plate. "I hope you know what you're doing." The confusion that flickered across her face was almost worth the knife she'd just twisted in my back. Almost. "What's that supposed to mean?" she demanded, her victorious expression faltering. "Nothing," I replied, my voice steady. "Just that managing an investment portfolio is a big responsibility. I'm sure you're ready for it." I could feel everyone's eyes on me, waiting for the breakdown, the tears, the dramatic confrontation. Instead, I turned toward the window, looking out at the golf course where Grandpa had taught me to play when I was 12. Where we'd walked last month, and he'd said something that hadn't made sense at the time. "Vanessa thinks she knows what matters," he told me, leaning on his club, his eyes fixed on the distant green. "She thinks it's about the money, the status, the announcement. But you and I know better, don't we, Sarah? We know it's about showing up. About understanding the work behind the wealth." I thought he was just being philosophical. Now I wondered. The reception continued around me. Vanessa held court like a queen, already discussing her plans for her portfolio, with anyone who would listen. I heard her mention luxury vacations, a new car, maybe even early retirement. "I mean, I deserve it," she was saying to a cluster of relatives. "I've worked so hard in my marketing career. Grandpa recognized that I understand value, that I know how to make smart decisions." I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing. Vanessa's marketing career consisted of managing social media for a boutique clothing store, which would be perfectly fine, except she'd been fired from 3 similar positions in the past 2 years for, as she put it, creative differences with management. I was contemplating slipping out early when there was a knock at the country club's main door. "I'll get it," I murmured, grateful for the escape. The man at the door was in his early 50s, with silver-streaked dark hair and sharp, intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. His charcoal suit was impeccably tailored, and he carried a burgundy leather briefcase that looked older than me. "Good afternoon," he said with a slight smile. "I'm looking for Sarah Mitchell." "I'm David Thornton, your grandfather's attorney and estate executor." My heart started pounding. "That's me. Please come in, Mr. Thornton. Please call me David." He stepped inside, his eyes scanning the room with the practiced assessment of someone who'd seen every family dynamic imaginable. "I apologize for my timing, but your grandfather was very specific about when I should arrive," he said. He paused, a hint of amusement in his voice. "He said to wait until Vanessa had made her announcement." "Oh, Grandpa." "I understand," I said quietly. "Would you like to speak privately?" "Actually, your grandfather requested that I address certain matters with you in the presence of the family." His expression was carefully neutral, but I saw something in his eyes, anticipation maybe, or the satisfaction of someone about to deliver a well-deserved surprise. We walked into the reception together. The conversation didn't stop immediately, but I saw heads turning, whispers starting. David Thornton was apparently recognizable to some of the older relatives. "Excuse me, everyone," David said, his voice carrying the kind of natural authority that made people stop and listen. "I'm David Thornton, Mr. Mitchell's attorney. I apologize for interrupting, but I have urgent estate matters to discuss with Sarah Mitchell." The room went quiet. Vanessa's face lit up with barely concealed glee. "Oh, is this about Grandpa's watch collection?" she asked sweetly. "Sarah, that's so nice. He always wore that old Rolex. I'm sure it has sentimental value even if it's not worth much." David turned to her, one eyebrow slightly raised. "I'm sorry, you are?" "Vanessa Mitchell. The primary beneficiary." She said it like a title she'd earned. "Ah, yes. Miss Mitchell." He pulled a folder from his briefcase. "Actually, I need to discuss Sarah's assets with her. There are several urgent matters requiring her immediate attention and signature." I felt the air shift in the room. Felt everyone's attention snap to me like a rubber band pulled too tight. "Sarah's assets?" My mother's voice was confused. David nodded, turning to me with a professional smile that held warmth underneath. "Sarah, we need to discuss the investment portfolio, the business holdings, the real estate properties, and the trust fund. Mr. Mitchell's estate is quite complex, and as the primary beneficiary, you'll need to make several time-sensitive decisions." The silence that followed was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. Vanessa's face went white. Actually white, like someone had drained all the color from her skin in an instant. "Her assets," she whispered, the words strangled. "What are you talking about?" "Grandpa left the portfolio to me. He told me." "When did he tell you that?" David asked, his tone polite but pointed. Last Christmas. He said I had a good head for business, that I understood value." "Those are lovely compliments," David interrupted gently. "But they're not the same as a legal bequest. Mr. Mitchell's will, revised and notarized 6 months ago, leaves the entirety of his investment portfolio, currently valued at approximately $4.7 million, along with his 3 commercial properties, his shares in Mitchell and Associates, and his personal trust fund, to Sarah Mitchell." He pulled out a document, holding it where Vanessa could see. He was quite explicit in his reasoning. "I have it here if you'd like me to read the relevant section." "Yes," I said quietly, finding my voice. "Please read it." David cleared his throat. "To my granddaughter Sarah I leave the bulk of my estate. Not because she asked for it, she never did. Not because she expected it, she didn't. But because over the past 5 years she showed up. Every Thursday without fail, unless she was out of town for work. She listened to my stories, even the ones I'd told 100 times. She asked thoughtful questions about my investments, not because she wanted them, but because she genuinely wanted to understand. She accompanied me to doctor's appointments, helped me navigate new technology, and treated our lunches like they mattered. Because to her they did." My eyes burned with tears. Around the room I saw several relatives looking down, embarrassed. David continued, "Sarah understood that wealth isn't just about money, It's about the wisdom to manage it, the patience to grow it, and the responsibility to preserve it. Vanessa thinks she wants my portfolio. But she wants the result of 50 years of work without understanding the work itself. Sarah earned this inheritance one Thursday afternoon at a time. The silence was deafening. Vanessa's perfectly made-up face crumpled. But he said, at Christmas he said I was smart, that I understood value. He was being kind, I said softly, the words hurting even as I spoke them. Because that's who Grandpa was. He never wanted to hurt anyone's feelings. But kindness and inheritance are two different things. This is insane. Vanessa's shock was transforming into rage. She manipulated him. He was old, probably senile. Mr. Mitchell was evaluated by 2 independent physicians who confirmed his complete mental competency at the time of the will's revision, David said, his voice cooling several degrees. I have the documentation. Additionally, he recorded a video statement explaining his reasoning. Would you like me to arrange a viewing? No, Vanessa spat. This is ridiculous. I'm contesting this. There's no way. You're certainly welcome to try, David said calmly. Though I should mention that Mr. Mitchell anticipated that possibility. He included a clause stating that any beneficiary who contests the will forfeits their inheritance entirely. What inheritance? Vanessa's voice was shrill now. You just said Sarah gets everything. Not everything, David corrected. You're receiving his personal effects, his watches, some jewelry, photo albums, and a letter he wrote specifically for you. He held out an envelope. Vanessa stared at it like it was a snake. What does it say? My mother asked, her voice small. Vanessa grabbed the envelope and tore it open with shaking hands. Her eyes scanned the page and I watched her face cycle through emotions. Shock, hurt, anger, and finally something that looked like shame. When she finished, she crumpled the letter and threw it on the floor. He was a bitter old man, she said, but her voice cracked on the words. I picked up the letter carefully, smoothing it out. Grandpa's handwriting, still strong despite his age. Vanessa, I hope by now you understand the difference between wanting something and earning it. I gave you compliments because I loved you. Sarah earned this inheritance because she loved me. Not my money, not my legacy, me. Every Thursday she proved it. I hope one day you learn what she already knows. That the greatest wealth isn't in the portfolio, it's in showing up for the people who matter. Love, Grandpa. I folded the letter carefully and tucked it in my purse. Sarah, David said gently, if you have time today we should review the documents. There are several time-sensitive decisions regarding the commercial properties, and the investment accounts need to be transferred to your name. Of course, I managed, my voice thick with emotion. Vanessa grabbed her designer purse and stormed toward the exit. This is insane. I can't believe you people are just accepting this. Vanessa. My voice stopped her at the door. For what it's worth, Grandpa loved you. He just loved you enough to be honest about what you hadn't earned. She left without another word. My mother followed her, throwing me a confused, almost betrayed look. Several other relatives slipped out quietly, unable to meet my eyes. But Aunt Patricia, the same one who'd congratulated Vanessa so enthusiastically, approached me slowly. Sarah, I owe you an apology. We all do. I never noticed how much you did for him. I should have. I nodded, accepting what I could. Thank you. When the room finally cleared, leaving just David and me, I sank into a chair, my legs suddenly unable to hold me. He was remarkable, your grandfather, David said, sitting across from me and pulling out documents. In our final meeting he told me this moment would be difficult for you. That you'd probably feel guilty. I do, I admitted. He said you would. He also said to tell you this. Sarah, you didn't take anything from anyone. You earned this through 5 years of Thursday afternoons that no one else bothered to show up for. Don't apologize for being seen by someone who actually paid attention. The tears came then, falling freely as I signed document after document. The investment portfolio. The commercial properties. The business shares. The trust fund. Each signature felt like validation and heartbreak mixed together. When David finally packed up his briefcase 3 hours later, the sun was setting through the country club windows. He also left you something else, David said, pulling out a small box. He wanted me to give you this personally. Inside was Grandpa's old Rolex, the one Vanessa had dismissed as sentimentally valuable but not worth much. Attached was a note in his handwriting. Same time next Thursday? I'll be listening. Love, Grandpa. I clasped the watch around my wrist, feeling its familiar weight. And then I let myself cry. For Grandpa, for every Thursday we'd spent together, for the inheritance that was so much more than money. Vanessa got her reality check. I got the portfolio, the properties, and something infinitely more valuable. The knowledge that Grandpa had seen me all along. Sometimes staying silent is the most powerful thing you can do. Sometimes showing up is the greatest inheritance you can give. And sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one who earned everything the loud one only assumed was hers.